To you and welcome to Rwanda Television News. My name is Sam Kalisa. And now heading in still into local matters. People here in Rwanda who like to use and buy second-hand vehicles, especially imported ones, say it is important to first check how long ago they were being manufactured, because very old vehicles can excessively pollute the air and even pose a health risk to people. They also say the concerned authorities should check such imported cars before they are allowed into the country. A report by the United Nations Environment Programme indicates that between 2015 and 2018, up to 14 million used cars from Europe, America, Asia and elsewhere were sold, and half of them ended up in Africa. It has now been close to 5 years since the East African Community States first introduced laws meant to curb the influx of the used cars, and during the official inauguration of Volkswagen assembly plant here in Rwanda back in 2018, President Paul Kagame pointed out that the African continent should not be dumping site for used products.
Africa does not need to be a dumping ground for second-hand cars or second-hand anything. You know what has been going around also about second-hand. In the long run, you end up paying a higher price anyway. So if you can pay a high price for second-hand, why not pay high price for something new? It's a simple choice. I think we Africans, Rwandans, we deserve better, and I think this is one way of showing how we can afford it.
And now, in a speech at Regina Pacis here in Kigali this Sunday, United Arab Emirates Ambassador, His Excellency Hazza Al-Katan, called on people to be tolerant and brotherly, and stressed that having different beliefs should not be some source of conflict. We have the story.
The Pacis Church in Kigali, Catholics who attended the afternoon mass compiled with the coronavirus prevention guidelines. They were proud to be with the first cardinal in the history of Rwanda, the Archbishop of Kigali, Antoine Kambanda. On the other hand, there was another guest, the United Arab Emirates, Hazza Al-Katani, who brought a message of relief.
The document of a human fraternity calls for an end to the use of religion as justification for war, violence and harm, and opposes extremism in all forms.
For members of the Catholic Church, difference in their belief should not be the source of divisions and conflicts. In my opinion, we should be tolerant because God did not create us for wars. He created us to love each other, and the way you love your neighbor should be the same way you love God. There shouldn't be conflicts. Tolerance between Christians and other religions is essential. Even with non-Christians, tolerance is important for people to live in harmony. The United Arab Emirates is made up of 7 emirates, including Abu Dhabi and its capital, and Dubai as its economic capital. It is a place where foreigners far outnumber the population. In all of these states, there are people of more than 200 nationalities living in peace, and each religion is legal and operates in spite of the fact that Islam is the most famous. Ambassador Hazza touched on the agreement signed between the head of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis, and the leader of Islam in the UAE, Amman Sheikh of Al-Zahr, Dr. Ahmed, when he visited the country in February last year. It is a pact that contains the principles of good brotherhood between Christians and Muslims in support of world peace, fraternity for world peace, and living together. On this, Ambassador Hazza argued that the agreement is a sign that no one can claim a religion or belief as an excuse for war, crime, extremism, and discrimination. Cardinal Antoine Kambanda, the Archbishop of Kigali, says it is unfortunate that some people base their religion beliefs and mix it up as a source of conflict and war, which he says is inappropriate. As you heard, the Pope recently visited the UAE to build peace all over the world, since sometimes religious differences are the cause of wars, so we should partner to solve that. On October 20th, 2019, the UAE announced to the UN General Assembly in New York that it intends to build a hall called the Abrahamic House of Fraternity, which will consist of a mosque, the church and the synagogue, and the center where the members of the churches will come together in fellowship as a symbol of equality and a dialogue aimed at consensus. It is currently under the construction and is expected to be completed by 2022.
Now, members of the Rwandan parliament concluded a week-long outreach initiative to communities to hear about their concerns and how various infrastructure projects are being implemented. The MPs visited, their visit ended in Kigali, visiting various infrastructure projects, including status of the construction of classrooms and how school administrators are implementing the COVID-19 preventive guidelines. They also visited some clinics. The MPs encountered various problems, including children who have not been able to resume school 1 week after classes have been resumed due to the problem that they complemented classrooms due to limited means. The Deputy Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies in the Parliament, Honorable Edamu Kabagwiza, pointed out that the problems across the country should be addressed.
Uhereye kuri uru rugero rw'abatangiye ubu ngubu wa kane n'uwa gatanu
Basing on the examples of those that resumed classes in the 4th and 5th grades, you find that they exceed 60%, but when you ask where the rest 30 to 40%, like in this school, they told us that 100 students did not return to schools, including young girls that were impregnated. The other problem, which is being considered, many children, especially in rural areas, misused their uniforms, and when the time of returning to schools came, they had no uniform. In a meeting we had with different leaders, we concluded that they should allow children to return to schools with any kind of cloth so that they cannot drop out of school.
Now, reaching out to people and hearing their grievances is one of the most responsibilities of the members of parliament. Now, into other matters, some lawmakers and members of the civil society are urging the Rwandan parliament to look into the ongoing consequences of after enforcing the law punishing those that impregnate young girls who have not reached the age. Martina Avera has more on this.
One morning, he woke up to the sound of the police knocking on his doors. Within a few hours, he had reached Rwanda Investigation Bureau, where he found other men arrested in the same raid. The anonymous young man has been charged with sexually assaulting a minor. The young man admits he is 19 years old, but should be punished for sleeping with a girl who is under 18. He claims that he didn't really pay attention to her age because she looked like they were age mates. That's how they agreed to stay together, have children, and start a family with, according to him. Others who were arrested at the same time say the same thing. Most of them were under the age of 20 and had been living with these teenagers for at least a year. Nevertheless, the law will hold them accountable. All of them are now awaiting trial and should be sentenced to at least 20 years in prison if convicted. This is also the number of years the underage girls will have to wait for their husbands to return, or the men that were imprisoned come out to find there are those that stuck around on their behalf. 2 weeks after their arrest, we arrived at the home of one of the detainees. At 2 p.m. in this home, the girl is now a wife at home with her 5-month-old baby. However, the baby cries all the time to a point where the mother can't have a single moment of peace and quiet. She cries because she is sick, the mother says. The eyes show you that she is still a child and has skin as well, which is why her husband was taken, but she hasn't accepted it yet. I was not sexually abused. There is no child who gives birth to another child. He did not take me out of school, I agreed. And I had nowhere else to live, so thank God he allowed me to stay with him. According to her, the life she lives with her baby is very difficult. When she wakes up, she goes to her mother-in-law to see if there is any leftover food, and when she finds porridge, that is what she takes for the day. It is also in this time that the money the husband left for the house rent is almost over. I can't leave because I don't have anywhere else to go, so I have no choice. If life gets tough for her only 2 weeks after husband leaves, what will 20 or 25 years be like? Don't the neighbors support her? Those around her say that the separation of the husband and wife will bring about something else. Either way, other boys will come here, impregnate her, and the cycle will start all over again. Local authorities have to go through cases of these women that had their husbands take care of every need of the household, the kids who will only take milk unless their fathers come back. All this is what the government is dealing with. At the age of 16, Judith Mukansanga left home accompanied by her parents to find a husband who was 5 years older than her. It was in 1976. In the 44 years they have been together, she gave birth to 9 children. She says that throughout all those years, her husband has never looked at her badly, and they are still together up to date. You would fall in love with a guy, take him home, and they would accept it, then get married. If your parents wouldn't accept it, they would come and take you home. But either way, you would find your way back to your husband if you wanted to. All that is said, however, Article 133 of Law Number 68 of 2018 of August 30th in the Rwandan Penal Code, it makes it clear that anyone who commits any act that leads to sexual activity and commits it to a person under the age of 18 has committed a crime of child molestation and should be punished. The civil society opposes the law. However, you find that imprisoning that person for 20 years is solving one problem and opening a door to many more, so something else should be done. Lawyers are not calling for the law to be repealed, but it could be amended as such, and the young man should be punished, but the family of the girl should be taken care of. Based on this, Ndikumana Elise, based on international law, including Article 144 of the French Civil Code, has called on the Rwandan Parliament to reduce the impact of the separation on the couple and the man to be punished of sexually abusing a minor. Since the beginning of this year, more than 50 people have been arrested in Rusizi district on suspicion of sexually assaulting a teenager. Hearing the news of the arrest of men who sexually harassed minors, you immediately think of these married men or older men abusing these girls. But the fact is that such arrests are dominated by unmarried young men and women who are almost in the same age group and already started building a life together. No one would support such homes, but experts say that if a boy and a girl have reached a point where they build a life together and have children, there should be another punishment put in place. Some say that even though the man is punished, the wife and the children are the ones that suffer the consequences 10 times more. Martina Abera, RTV News.
And on behalf of the entire news team that made this happen, thank you very much for sticking with us. My name is Sam Kalisa. Please do remember that social distancing remains essential whenever in public. Wear your mask correctly. Please wash your hands regularly with clean water and soap. And yes, together we can stop the spread of COVID-19. Have a lovely evening and a fruitful week ahead.